Two women, one young and the other older, strolled along the waterfront. The gentle sea lapped against the rocks at their feet as the sun set. Beyond the horizon, evening settled in. Irina Olegovna was accustomed to achieving everything on her own. She had long divorced her husband, Anatoly, who turned out to be not the man she needed. But why be surprised? They got married when they were very young. As they matured, they realized they were very different, each with their own life goals. Anatoly was content with little. He worked as an engineer at a factory, had a stable middle income, and had no ambition to grow. "I love my job," he would tell his young and ambitious wife. "Why do I need a business when I feel so good about myself?" Irina, however, understood that it was now or never, that she needed to act and take risks. Anatoly was not willing to take risks, only saying, "You can always return to your factory." She tried to convince him. Anya's husband is opening a shop. Natasha and her husband travel to Turkey for clothes and jewelry. And here we are, waiting for your factory to close. They haven't paid salaries for 3 months. These are temporary difficulties. I repeat, I'm satisfied with my job, and I don't want to risk everything. What's there to risk? The woman exclaimed. A meager salary or a room in a communal apartment. Are you kidding me? However, Irina's words had no effect on her husband, so she decided to take action. The first time, she went to Turkey for goods with a friend and her husband, borrowing money from them. She worried the whole way, but fortunately, Natalia turned out to be a true friend and did not deceive her. Everything started from that moment. At the moment, the woman had her own business, 2 clothing stores and 2 stalls at the market. From her old memory, Irina sold defective and unsellable items there. After she entered the business, her relationship with her husband deteriorated completely. He considered such an occupation beneath his dignity, and what hurt him the most was that it brought in real income. Anatoly started drinking. Irina, already tired of his constant complaints and incompetence, filed for divorce. She left the communal apartment without regret for her own 1-room apartment. Now she had a 4-room apartment in a new building. However, the woman was grateful to her ex-husband for something. Firstly, he inadvertently motivated her to develop in the business sphere. Secondly, he was the father of her only son, Nikita. Irina never remarried. At first, she was too busy building her business, and then it was not necessary. Why did she need a man when she had achieved everything herself? Besides, the woman did not want to bring a new husband into the house and cause discomfort to her own son. She strived for him. Dear viewers, I will be grateful to you for subscribing to my channel. It motivates me to create new videos every day. Let's continue the story. Nikita grew up as a spoiled child, quickly getting used to the idea that the world revolved around him. His mother made sure he lacked nothing. He was as well-dressed and well-fed as anyone else. From childhood, she dressed him in good branded clothes, bought the best gadgets, paid for tutors and extra English lessons. He wasn't very popular in school. Rather, he was very selective about the people he surrounded himself with. His inclination towards the best played into his hands. He studied well and earned a gold medal, only thanks to his own knowledge and efforts. By the time Nikita entered the 11th grade, his mother had long been a successful businesswoman. Upon graduation, the guy received a new foreign car and the opportunity to get a higher education abroad. Nikita was overjoyed because he was about to become a student at Oxford University. At that time, he practically did not communicate with his father. He did not respect him, and that was an important criterion for Nikita. The United Kingdom welcomed the recent graduate with gloomy gray clouds and light rain. Everything here was different from home in his native city. Unexpectedly for himself, Nikita felt homesick, but consoled himself with the thought that, having received a good quality education, he could become successful. At home, it seemed that even in Great Britain, there were people like them. Nikita studied in the same group with Maxim, the son of a famous deputy, and Andrei, a native of St. Petersburg. The 3 of them settled in the dormitory, where they prepared for classes, spent their free time, and dreamed together. The young men grew up at a time when money was not earned entirely honestly. They planned to introduce an honest business or become honest politicians. Maxim, for example, aimed for a political career, wanting to continue his father's business. The guys were idealists. Firstly, their parents tried to protect them from real life. Secondly, the idealized closed world of the university. The Oxford community aggressively promoted its ideas. Nikita, Maxim, and Andrei decided that they could change this world for the better. They saw it as their mission. When Nikita returned home for the holidays, he began to notice that his mother ran her business not quite as they were taught at the university. "Mom, are you hiding income from the state?" he protested. "Son, when you start working for yourself, do as you know. And here, if you don't hide it, you won't get anything. You are studying at Oxford. Do you think I could earn money for your education through honest work?" Irina Olegovna exclaimed. Nikita preferred not to quarrel with his mother. 4 years passed like a flash, and the guy returned home. It was time to apply the acquired knowledge in practice. Over these years, Irina Olegovna had made the necessary connections. She arranged for her son to work in the civil service, where his progressive views and good education were needed. The job appealed to the guy, and every morning, his grandfather in a branded suit with a tie and a briefcase left in his car. "My son has grown up so quickly," Irina Olegovna said with affection and a sigh. Nikita had no friends in his hometown, only those who tried to take advantage of their acquaintance with him, and he quickly identified and cut off any contact with such people. On weekends, Nikita met with Maxim at one of the exclusive clubs. Sometimes Andrei from St. Petersburg joined them, but it didn't happen often. The guys chatted and played chess, considering the game beneficial for intellectual development. The club was interest-based, and there was a special chess room where enthusiasts of the game could isolate themselves. Nikita usually won, and the club regulars knew about it. Few agreed to play with him. On that fateful evening, Nikita and Maxim stayed in the club until almost morning. A good company gathered, and as usual, Nikita won against everyone except Maxim. So they stayed for a few more games. The score was even, with one winning and then the other. They had been sitting for 40 minutes on the last game. Unnoticed, a staff girl entered the room to clean the table and change the ashtrays. Suddenly, Nikita grabbed her hand and said, "Do you know how to play chess?" Maxim looked at him in confusion. The frightened girl cautiously replied, "Yes. You can play instead of me." Well, Maxim laughed. "You could have just surrendered." The girl looked at the chessboard carefully. The guys fell silent. She made only 2 moves, the second being a pawn. She checkmated, ending the game. Maxim lost. "It was so simple, child's play," he exclaimed. "You messed with my head." Nikita laughed, almost rolling on the floor. "Girl, you're a marvel," he said to her through laughter. "How can I thank you?" He looked at her directly for the first time. The girl blushed. "I don't need anything," she replied and rushed out of the room. However, her sparkling green eyes struck Nikita right in the heart. The guy found out the girl's name and the place where she studied from the administrator. He didn't know her address. A couple of days later, Nikita drove to the University of Culture. He already knew in which group his mysterious savior studied, and even knew the schedule of her classes. The classes were supposed to be over, and students began to leave. Among them was a slender red-haired girl who was emotionally talking about something, waving her hands. Nikita honked at her from the car and waved. "Wow!" Her companion exclaimed. "Rita, is that you? And you pretend to be a little white lamb, saying you don't have a boyfriend." The girls walking with Margarita nodded their heads, trying to see the driver of the luxurious red Lamborghini. "Look at you, a silent one," someone said. Margarita stopped near the car and crossed her arms on her chest. "What do you want?" she asked without preamble. "To see you," Nikita replied. "Well, see me off." The girl turned away, preparing to leave. "Wait, I wanted to ask, where did you learn to play chess so well? What's there to play? You miss a standard combination, but my grandfather played well. When he had no partner, he took me with him. So I had to learn. Maybe we can go to a cafe, play chess," Nikita suggested. "Play chess in a cafe? Where have you seen that?" "I won't go to the club. I work there." Margarita finally smiled. "Well then, let's just have coffee and we can play chess in the park." Nikita didn't give up. They sat for a long time in a summer cafe located in a beautiful park. They drank coffee, ate ice cream, and talked. Nikita invited Rita to an expensive restaurant, but she refused. It turned out that the girl was from a remote village. She came to the big city to study, with no relatives or acquaintances here. Therefore, she lived in a dormitory. To survive, she had to work as a night cleaner in the club. Do your parents not help you? I believe it's their responsibility to provide their children with an education, philosophized Nikita. That's if you have parents, Margarita said with a sad smile. My mother died 3 years ago from liver cirrhosis. She drank, ever since my father had a motorcycle accident out of grief. That happened 6 years before that, so she sold the house, the car. So, what do you have left? Nikita continued. You're funny. What could we have left? Mother sold or exchanged everything she could for alcohol. I don't know how I wasn't taken to an orphanage. Social services came to my mother several times, but someone always warned her the day before. So she managed to tidy up the house a bit, cook some soup, but not much more. After her death, my aunt took me in. She wanted to take our house, so I was even worse off than at home with that drunk mother. Everyone just didn't care about me, and that mean aunt hated me altogether. She thought I would mistreat her children, and that my older and more audacious sisters didn't matter. When I left them last year, I never went home once, and I don't feel like it, to be honest, sighed Margarita. So, no one helps you, and you pay for your education and accommodation yourself. Nikita was surprised. I study on a scholarship, so I don't have to pay for education. I receive a stipend, and it's increased. Plus, I work, so I can pay for the dorm, buy food, and some things. That's how I live, the girl smiled. For Nikita, her words became a revelation. He couldn't imagine what it was like to live without support, earning for education, and even just for food. This cute, charming girl suddenly became almost a heroine for him. Thus began these unusual relationships, a wealthy guy and a poor student. Nikita hurried to Margarita after work. They often just walked around the city. The girl was interested in visiting exhibitions, concerts, museums, and other attractions. She loved the theater. Nikita bought tickets for the best seats. Margarita dreamed of going to the opera and now disliked spending time in cafes, restaurants, and clubs. She tried to spend time with benefit and interest. The girl tried to see and learn as much as possible. This also amazed Nikita. It turned out that he himself didn't know much about his city, hadn't seen all its beauty. On weekends, they traveled to neighboring cities, explored sights, walked, looked, admired. Nikita's mother didn't notice changes in her son's behavior for a long time. She was busy opening a new store in a modern shopping center. Son, where do you disappear to on weekends? Are you going to St. Petersburg to see Andrei? She asked casually one day. No, I haven't seen Andrei for about 3 months now, Nikita replied nonchalantly. Are you having fun with Maxim? His mother got concerned. Suddenly she realized that something was happening. She had missed something. Mom, I have a different life now. I finally, as you wanted, started thinking about marriage. Son expressed Irina Olegovna's wish. You're getting married to Natasha, she exclaimed. Really? With which Natasha? With Shestakova? I haven't even thought about it. I have a different girl. Her name is Margarita. Which Margarita? The woman even sat down. And what about Natasha? She has such a good family, such prospects. And she herself is educated, smart, beautiful. We talked about this a long time ago, didn't we? You seem to be okay with it. What's okay, Mom? Getting married without love, for the sake of gain and good prospects. I don't want that. I love Margarita more than life, and the money I earn will be enough for us to live a carefree, happy life. As much as you earn, but she doesn't work, he reassured his mother. No, she works as a cleaner in a club and studies at the Institute of Culture. Nikita looked at his mother and realized that she wasn't thrilled with what she'd heard. He continued, trying to calm her. Don't worry, Rita is smart. She's an orphan, achieved everything in life herself. Her parents were alcoholics, but they died. Bring me some water, Irina Olegovna weakly asked. She was really on the verge of a nervous breakdown or hysteria. An orphan and the daughter of alcoholics. A destitute girl is not the woman his son dreamt of. It's a different story with Natasha, the daughter of her longtime business partner. The girl's father and hers had long discussed the possibility of marriage between their children. Happiness was so close. Where did this Margarita come from? Since then, it seemed like a cat had walked between the son and the mother. Irina Olegovna tried everything to persuade Nikita to marry Natasha, but he insisted on his love for Margarita. "Meet, Mom. This is my beloved Margarita," he declared, opening the door for a petite, slender girl with fiery red hair. Irina Olegovna didn't even attempt to feign joy, but still offered the guests tea. Upbringing took its toll. The mother unabashedly scrutinized a stranger. Thoughts swirled in the woman's head. Poor, worn out, albeit neat clothes, modest makeup, a home manicure. The girl sat modestly, lowered her gaze, and blushed. To Irina Olegovna's questions, she responded respectfully and honestly. "Are you sure about your decision?" the woman asked. She understood that talking about something else was pointless. Her son was used to getting everything he wanted. At the moment, it was a wedding with Margarita. 3 months later, Nikita and Rita got married. The wedding took place in a luxurious restaurant. Margarita was dressed in a designer dress. Everything went at the highest level. Irina Olegovna set her son one condition. After the wedding, they had to live with her. She had just moved from an apartment to a luxurious 2-story cottage. Margarita was vehemently against living together with her mother-in-law because Irina Olegovna disliked the girl too much. She suggested to her future husband to rent a place or take a small apartment on a mortgage, his salary allowed. However, Nikita was genuinely surprised by such a desire. "Are we going to live in a small room? Ma has such a big cozy house standing empty. She specifically bought it, waiting for me to get married, and then kids would come. Imagine how good it will be for all of us together in a big mansion," Nikita said. Margarita could imagine it very well, so she didn't want to live with her mother-in-law. But unfortunately, she didn't decide anything when she became Nikita's wife. Margarita, of course, quit her part-time job and now was fully dependent on her husband and his mother. Irina Olegovna didn't miss an opportunity to remind her of this at every convenient opportunity. "What's it like to be a freeloader? Does your conscience not bother you?" the mother-in-law asked Rita, smirking. They constantly argued when Nikita wasn't at home. Margarita blushed and tried to leave quickly for their room with Nikita. Irina Olegovna got angry, but tried not to touch the bride in front of her son. Nikita once said that if she kept picking on Rita, they would move to another apartment. But the woman believed in it very weakly and didn't want to tempt fate. Margarita didn't complain to her husband about her mother-in-law. On the contrary, she tried to befriend her, cooked lunch for the family. It soon became her direct duty, and she cleaned the house before her mother-in-law. Once a week, she ordered cleaning and took care of the large flower beds. She loved flowers and enjoyed growing them. However, Irina Olegovna took it all for granted, and her attitude towards her daughter-in-law didn't change. On the contrary, she always found faults in what Margarita did. Her borscht was tasty, but there was dust on the shelves, as thick as a finger, and the flowers in the flower bed were overgrown with weeds. Margarita loved her husband very much. She could sense his mood, knew in advance what he wanted to say, and could anticipate his desires. For their honeymoon, Nikita took her to Turkey, cliché, but Rita had never been there before. So, for her, this trip became a real fairy tale. "Nikita, do you love me?" the girl often asked. She still doubted whether this rich, handsome man loved her as much as she loved him. "Of course I love you." What silly questions. Nikita never doubted his words for a second. "And why?" "Because you're so real, alive, straightforward, and also simply beautiful," Nikita hugged his wife. "And I love you just because, for nothing, specifically for being you," Rita said thoughtfully. One Sunday morning they gathered for shopping as a family. Such joint outings were extremely rare for them. However, everyone needed to go. Irina Olegovna urgently needed to get to her store and control the production of goods, while Rita and Nikita needed to buy groceries for the week. They had to use Irina Olegovna's car because Oleg had taken his for repairs. As they were getting in, Rita asked to sit in the front seat. "What are you coming up with?" shouted her mother-in-law. "I'll drive and let the son sit next to me. It'll be more comfortable for everyone. I really need to." The woman persisted. "Margarita, calm down already." Finally, Irina Olegovna was on the verge of fury. "Sit where you were told. What stubbornness is this?" Margarita tried to resist, but even Nikita began to get annoyed. He couldn't understand why his wife was so insistent on sitting in the front seat. Moreover, it was high time to leave. Finally, the car moved. Rita silently looked out the window. She herself didn't know what had come over her. She just desperately needed to sit in the front seat, simply vital. "Irina Olegovna, can I switch again, please?" She whimpered before the next intersection. "Oh, please. Can you calm your wife down finally?" The woman shouted and slammed on the brakes. Suddenly, a truck flew onto the road right in front of them, skidding right where their car was supposed to be at that moment. The whole family froze, staring out the window. No one could move. "We would be there now, and you, son, just..." With the impact, Irina Olegovna quietly, with some alien, lifeless voice, said, "I asked you to sit in the front." Suddenly, Margarita burst into tears at full volume. Irina Olegovna, as if waking up, shaking off her stiffness, forcefully embraced the girl, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Your love saved Nikita," she whispered to Margarita. "I will always be grateful to you for that." The two women, young and older, walked along the embankment. The gentle sea crashed against the stones at their feet. The sun was setting. Beyond the horizon, it was getting darker. "Mom, maybe we should go back already. I'm afraid the twins will torture Nikita completely." "He hasn't been alone with them for so long," the younger one spoke. "Nothing, let them be with their father for a while. He's used to you always being with the kids." The older one smiled. When they returned, it turned out that everything was under control. Nikita sent the sons to the trampoline, occasionally adding money when their time there was about to end. "You're interesting, dear. I didn't think you'd handle the kids so well," his wife laughed. If not for Nika, the man nodded at the eldest 9-year-old daughter, who was playing with a peer on a nearby bench. "I would have already run away from these 3-year-old monsters." She came up with the idea of the trampoline, Nikita admitted. "You're only dealing with them. That's how it gets fixed. You don't have a wife, but Gold," his mother appreciated her, winking at Margarita. "It helps me a lot. Our mom. Without her, I wouldn't cope." Rita winked at her mother-in-law. "Besides, we have Vera Petrovna. She's a housekeeper, a cook, and a gardener all in one," Margarita said. The women laughed cheerfully, and the waves kept rolling onto the shore, washing the coastal stones with salty water. The last rays of the sun slowly melted into the sea. Dear listener, if you liked this story, subscribe to our channel. Like and be sure to write your opinion in the comments. I also recommend watching our next videos.